When I was a child, I would watch American TV on cable. You see, kids, back in the day, we didn't have streaming. We had to watch whatever they were playing and wait there. And once the cartoons were over, the television schedule would change. Some completely different program would take their place. I remember a soap opera would come on. I never watched it. To this day, I could not tell you the names of any character or a single plotline. But I remember the opening sequence perfectly. An hourglass would appear on the screen. Sand would slowly slip from the upper chamber to the lower one, and a narrator would say, "Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives." For some reason, that image stayed with me. Maybe because even as a child, I understood something about it. You can stare at an hourglass for a long time and almost feel as though nothing is happening. One grain falls, then another, then another. There's no big drama, no sudden movement. Yet, you look away for a little while and everything has changed. The top chamber that was once full is nearly empty. Time has passed and something irreversible has happened. Every year, when I read Parashat Chukat, I think about that hourglass. At the end of Parashat Shlach, the spies returned from the land of Israel with their disastrous report. And God decreed that the generation that left Egypt will wander in the wilderness for 40 years and that they will not enter the promised land. Then the Torah turns the page, or rolls it, if you will, and suddenly we are in the 40th year. Miriam is gone, Aaron is nearing the end of his life, the people stand at the threshold of the promised land. Almost 38 years have disappeared. 38 years, imagine that. An entire generation passes between chapters. I always imagine the desert sands in this story falling like the sands of an hourglass. The days of their lives just falling through. The Torah simply moves from the aftermath of the spies to the final year of the journey, nearly 4 decades, vanished with almost no narrative at all. What happened during those years? Everything happened. Life happened. And yet, the Torah says nothing. I don't think that silence is accidental. The Torah is perhaps teaching us something that we often struggle to learn. Most of us assume that life is defined by the dramatic moments. We remember the wedding day, we remember our bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, our graduation, promotions, a move, retirement, the birth of a child. We build our personal histories around major landmarks, major events, milestones. But if we're honest, most of life is not lived in the milestones. Most of life is lived between them. A young parent discovers this very quickly. When children are small, there are days that feel endless. By bedtime, you feel as though you have lived a month since breakfast. And yet, years later, you look at old photographs and wonder, where did time go? There's a saying among parents, the days are long, but the years are short. And that could almost be the motto of the wilderness generation. The days were long, the years disappeared. Perhaps that is why the Torah passes over them so quickly. Not because they were unimportant, but because they were ordinary. And ordinary is often where the deepest work of life takes place. We live in a culture that celebrates milestones and achievements. We are constantly encouraged to think about the next accomplishment, the next goal, the next destination. We tell ourselves that life will finally settle down after the next promotion, or after retirement, or after the children are grown, after we solve whatever problem currently occupies our attention. John Lennon once captured this tendency perfectly when he wrote, "Life is what happens to you while you are busy making other plans." The Israelites spent decades thinking about the promised land. Meanwhile, life was happening in the wilderness. And perhaps the same is true for us. We spend so much time looking ahead that we fail to appreciate the sacredness of the chapter we are living right now. The irony is that when we look back on our lives, it is often not the grand moments we miss the most. We miss the ordinary ones. The dinners around the table, the bedtime stories, the conversations with our parents, the routines we once found tedious, the people we assumed would always be there. The Torah's silence forces us to confront a difficult truth. Growth rarely happens all at once. Character is not built in a single dramatic moment. Faith is not formed overnight. Wisdom does not arrive suddenly. Most of what matters in life is formed slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. One grain of sand at a time. The psalmist understood this when he prayed, "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." Not our years, not our achievements or accomplishments, but our days. Because wisdom begins when we recognize that every day matters, even the ones that seem uneventful, especially the ones that feel uneventful. The wilderness years were not wasted years. They were the years during which a generation of slaves became a people capable of entering the land. The transformation happened in the years the Torah barely records. It happens in those unwritten chapters. And we all have wilderness years. Years that seem repetitive, years that feel as though nothing significant is happening. Years when we wonder whether we are making progress at all. Maybe we're simply caring for a spouse, raising children, showing up for work, helping aging parents, or recovering from loss, maintaining friendships, going to doctor's appointments, and trying to remain faithful through another ordinary day. The hourglass teaches us that time is always moving, whether we notice it or not. And the Torah teaches us that growth is often happening, whether we notice it or not. Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. And if Chukat teaches us anything, it is that the unwritten chapters are often the ones that shape us the most. They may not make headlines, they may not feel dramatic, but one day we will look back and realize that while the sand was quietly falling, God was preparing us for the next stage of our journey.